US, UK, hands up for Assange. US, UK, hands up for Assange.
There's only one decision.
No extradition.
There's only one decision.
No extradition.
US, UK,
Hands up for Assange.
US, UK.
Hands up for Assange.
Open up the door.
2023.
They should have set him free.
Okay. Yalla. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today. Okay. Yep.
Okay, here we are again, another Saturday, another day of protest to see Julian free. Julian has been in this cruel establishment for nearly 5 years. He is an innocent, courageous and principled journalist. He should be free. He has done a great service to the world in exposing US and UK war crimes, environmental catastrophes, corruption by elites all over the world. But those elites cannot tolerate the truth, and hence he's found himself here in Belmarsh. And it seems to me that one of the weapons being used against him is time. Poor Julian spent 7 years as a political asylum seeker in the Ecuadorian embassy, during which time legally he should have been free to go to Ecuador. Then in April 29, he's dragged out of the Ecuadorian embassy, which is awful. The manner that it which was done, the way he was left dishevelled, so he would appear that he was some kind of madman when he came out unshaven. Absolute insult to this man. Then during COVID, the first appeal had to be cancelled. Then in January 2021, Judge Barrister said that he could not be extradited to the US because it would not be good for his mental health. He could prove to be a suicide risk. But Barrister totally ignored all the other substantial claims as to why it was not appropriate to extradite him. Now what happened next? I mean, it just goes on and on. I mean, so what happened then was that the US, they could not accept Barrister's decision, and they appealed against the decision that he should not be extradited. And I think that was in July 21, they were given grounds to appeal that decision. And then, I think it was in December 2021, the High Court judges actually accepted what the US Justice Department had to say, that their assurances could be given credibility, that his human rights were being accepted, not accepted, respected. But the point is, why would they ever, I mean, how could they make the decision to send him to the US in the first place? There's no grounds for him to be imprisoned in the US, however he might be treated there.
He's an Australian citizen.
And he's an Australian citizen, exactly. So after that, the Supreme Court in this country shamefully rejected his grounds for appeal. Priti Patel, then Home Secretary, signed the extradition order. And it just goes on and on and on. And then, I think it was February 23, Julian's lawyers made a long and substantial appeal for his defence that I think ran to 102 pages. Very well argued legal arguments.
Ignored.
And then in June or July 2023, the horrible, honourable, Justice Swift dismissed the appeal out of hand in a peremptory 3-page statement that totally ignored everything that Julian's lawyers had said. And since then, so that's last July, and it's taken until this February for there to be a further hearing, for the final further appeal, for Julian to be given a full appeal. And that was last week, as we know. And there were hundreds of people outside the High Court and hundreds of people around the world who were giving their support to Julian. And the two judges, both from the British establishment, the very worst people to be trying this case, hearing this case. They had all the evidence before them from Julian's defence to quash the extradition there and then and to free him.
Even new evidence.
And new evidence, thank you.
Told us and lied.
But what now? They are now going to go away and decide. So how many weeks is that going to take? The whole thing is a charade. The Magna Carta in this country has been totally ripped up. Yes. There no longer exists any separation of powers. The judiciary has been corrupted by the US judicial system. Yes. Everyone in the British establishment should be utterly ashamed of what has happened to Julian Assange. So we say to the British establishment, to the lawyers, to the US Justice Department, to President Biden, to Rishi Sunak, free Julian Assange!
Free Julian Assange!
Now.
Free Julian Assange!
Free Julian Assange!
Now. Thank you, David.
I can't.
Prison guards, listen up. Last week, I talked about Navalny's legal situation in Russia and compared it to Assange's legal situation here in London. Then we heard that Navalny died. He was taking a walk inside his prison camp, is what they told us. What a load of rubbish. It's as if the Kremlin knows that they are lying. They want the people to know that they are lying, that they deliberately murdered Navalny, but they don't have to admit it. Here in London, we heard that Julian Assange was too ill to come to his own court hearing. We're told that he had a bad cold, that he was coughing so badly that he broke a rib. That's what we were told. Well, it might be true, but then we have a couple of questions. Do you have an X-ray machine here in Belmarsh to look at his rib? Was he taken to hospital? You'd think that in a high security, maximum security prison, that there would be an X-ray machine to avoid having to take prisoners to hospital. So tell us, is there an X-ray machine here? I wouldn't mind betting that logically there is a machine here. We might find out sometime in the future that it's broken, that it's been out of order already for a long time. Oh dear, what a bunch of lies we get from the prison service. We know that medical facilities in prison are pathetic. We know that medical officers in prison don't give a toss. We know that. If it should happen that Assange suffers the worst fate of all, your heads will be on the chopping block. We would demand an independent autopsy.
Yes.
And a second opinion. Your heads will be on the block. So what's left to say? I don't know. The UN has already classed Julian Assange as having been psychologically tortured. You don't have to take my word for it. Google it yourselves and check it out. Look for the name Nils Melzer. He is the UN rapporteur on these matters. We also know that it's not easy to change the way that states behave. You people here are just cogs in the machine. It's not so easy even to realize what the machine is doing, and even if you wanted to, there's not much you can do. The problem is you don't even want to do anything. That is the truth for today. We will see you next week. We will be here next week until Julian is free.
Free Julian Assange!
Free Julian Assange!
Free Julian Assange now!
Free Julian Assange now!
Beautiful. Bravo, Peter.
Thank you.
Bravo.
Are you here for this week or next week?
It's need to know basis. The old branch.
Do you want to make a speech?
Yeah, after this guy.
Okay.
What's happening? Are you going to speak?
Okay. We've done 2 speeches.
Okay.
How are you, Deborah?
Not so bad. Recovered from this week. It was so tiring, wasn't it?
Yeah, really.
But, as my first excursion out, it was a bit much.
Okay.
Oh, hang on, let me get my video ready. Oh, you're doing him?
Yeah.
Oh, I won't bother then.
You right?
Or should I do it and put it on your side?
Yeah, good.
Okay. So yeah, it's you know, it's important to recognise where we are and what time it is, and where we are has a long history of death and destruction. This is Woolwich Arsenal. It's where nearly every cannon for the British Empire was built, and those cannons went to Ireland, they went to Africa, they went to India, they went to the Americas, they went to the Caribbean, and like all empires, they wrought death and destruction. And they're quite, you know, and the past empires were quite proud of their death and destruction. And but the empire, the ruling elites we have now are quite invisible, and they're not really the politicians. They're like CEOs and bureaucrats and what people popularly call the deep state. And I was quite concerned listening to a discussion which included Chris Hedges and Craig Murray. And Craig Murray seemed to have the position I held, which was they're not going to bring Julian Assange to the United States in an election year when they blame him for Clinton losing, which is complete bullshit. Bad candidate, and also to read a book called The Glass Ceiling, ran a bad campaign. And you know, there's an interesting interview with the late John Filger and Julian a couple of days before the election. And Filger said, who would you prefer to win? And Julian's like, well, Trump obviously can't win. He hasn't got the Republican Party behind him, he hasn't got Hollywood behind him. And Julian says, well, it's just choice between gonorrhea and syphilis, really, isn't it? And there's an old Anarchist saying from the 60s in Brisbane, you either went to jail, you had conscription, so you either went to jail or Vietnam. And the old saying is, if they give you two options, always choose the third, you know. And so I'm a bit sleep deprived today, as I was at the first day of the trial, because I spent time with the new medium of liquid paper, and this happens to be my US prison number for life, and it's 03810 which I had to say repetitively. And so yeah, I was working away on the liquid paper, and it stood up to the rain quite well on the second day, I thought. And also a placard in Latin. And I was conscripted into the Altar Boys in 1967, did 8 years. And that was the first year after Vatican II, you didn't have to learn Latin, which was great, because I'm shit at languages. But I thought I'd go the extra mile. Brents and Yanks need to put some habeas back into Julian Assange's corpus before he is post-mortem. So habeas corpus is one of the great things the British gave to us. They gave us the Q, which is very democratic, if you've been in an Australian pub. And also habeas corpus, produce the body. You can't just throw a guy in a dungeon or girl. But they've thrown him in this dungeon without charge, and he's been in there for 5 years. Now this is the toughest prison in England that I'm aware of. Why he isn't in a minimum security jail? Why is he not electronically tagged in their terms of reference? They really haven't got an argument. Ipso facto, which means clearly obvious. This has been a fit up from the get-go in Australian vernacular. Corpus delicti, the real criminals hold the keys. And corpus delicti means the essential element in any criminal case. I only learned that recently. So we've got Julian Assange here, who could be a multi-millionaire poolside in Silicon Valley, but he decided the gifts that were given to him, he would put at the service of those who have been bombed and impoverished by empires like ours. And that's why he's like, it's unbelievable. He's only about 100 metres from where we are now, and he's not well enough to go to court, not well enough to watch the proceedings. They are killing, he's not dying in there, they're killing him in there. And they're killing him slowly, like killed Bobby Sands and Oscar Wilde and so many others. Like they kill the world's poor slowly, malnutrition and fast, like in Gaza. Now these two wonderful women, kind of ironically, are lighting a candle for Jerry Conlon, who did 16 years in prison with the Guildford 4 case. And Gareth Peirce really is a living, walking saint. So not only did she do the Assange case this week, she was doing the woman that was trafficked to Syria as a child and who they're stripping her British citizenship from, Yeah, just pile on the abuse, And she also did Jerry Conlon's case, she did the Belmarsh case, she did the Maguire 7. And all the Maguires did was put up Giuseppe Conlon, and all he did was pacifist. He didn't go to all of it too. And he was to come and get a lawyer for his son, and he stayed with his in-laws, Maguires. Now, Anne Maguire was quite a conservative woman. She had a picture of the Queen on the wall. Her husband had been in the British Army. She did 11 years in jail here for nothing, for putting up her in-law. I met Patrick and Vincent. Patrick was 14 when he was tortured, and he did 3 years. I spoke to Vincent on the phone. We named a house called Giuseppe Conlon House, and that became the hub of Julian Assange Street Solidarity from 2010 to 14 till I was evicted by a priest. And the Catholic worker is a lay movement, we don't have clerics in it. But I got evicted because of my association with Julian Assange, and this is why other groups did fear, and this is why people didn't question the miscarriages of justice of Guildford 4, Birmingham 6 and 5-7, or those in Guantanamo, because of guilt by association. So if you question, Jerry Conlon doing 16 years, you were seen as being soft on putting bombs in pubs, Or if you questioned the fit up on Julian Assange, you were seen as soft on sexual assault. And I was physically assaulted on a number of occasions in this town for speaking up to Julian by identity politics idiots. We actually had a gig for Chelsea Manning in Liverpool, and the lynch mob that attacked that gig, and it was in a Dockers pub, with Dockers bouncers, but they're overwhelmed by this lynch mob saying I was a transphobe or something. And what they should have done was dual power us. Let's put on a better gig for Chelsea Manning, and raise money for a family to go and visit, because that's what we were doing. And up to that point, they had no support, the Manning family, and it wasn't that hard. I went into with a rugby ball. I said, Julian, sign this. So he goes, free Bradley Manning at the time. Julian, I said, I want Assange on it. So we raffled that and made £1,000. It was easy. And both of these wonderful women have passed away, Jenny started with me the Wise Up website, which was a pretty good archive. Although I noticed my kissing booth at the Joe Jalova Afra has been erased. I've always wanted to do a kissing booth, didn't raise much money. And Susan Manning was a really good working class woman from a really tribal Irish-Welsh family in Haverfordwest. She met an American soldier. First kid was born in Haverfordwest. Bradley was born in the States. Divorced. Bradley was brought back to Haverfordwest, and I went up there with my godson, who was in the SAS, Ben Griffin. And also Jimmy Ash came along, who was in the Provisional Irish Republican Army. And I had them either side of me at this play called The Radicalisation of Bradley Manning by the Welsh National Theatre, written by Tim Price, who writes for EastEnders. I went back to see Gareth, and Gareth went to, like the royal family, went to Cheltenham Ladies College. So she's kind of got like the deportment and the accent of the Queen, And she's peering, and she's very painfully shy, very hard to promote. So she's peering over all these law books, and she said, how was the play? I said, well, I had the provost on one side of me, on the SAS on the other. And she goes, but Kieran, isn't that the way it should be? And I said, maybe, Gareth, but I think I'm out of my depth. Anyway, so, yeah, and then this is our party piece against the war, where fighters broke into Shannon Airport. And Ireland's supposed to be a neutral country. And that neutrality comes out of the militant anti-conscription movement against the imperialist war of World War I. And the Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael, pretty much the same, but they're the different parties that came out of the Civil War, those who went with Collins and those who went with De Valera, which is quite interesting, because everyone who signed the proclamation was summarily executed, except De Valera, because he couldn't be found guilty of treason because he was born in the United States. Now, how can Julian Assange, an Australian, be treasonable to the United States, And so WikiLeaks released cables from the US Embassy back to DC about this incident, about our acquittal, unanimous acquittal after the third trial, not guilty on $2.5 million criminal damage to a US warplane and €100 to the hangar, which I thought was a bit petty. But they actually, this is the arrogance of the Americans, they summoned the Irish government to the embassy. Now what usually happens is you summon the ambassador to the government, right? And that was even too much for the compliant Irish government. Piss off. And and also the offer was made by the United States after this action, our action by Mary Kelly, that they would leave Ireland, and the Irish government begged them to stay. Now they've got bases here left over from World War II, they've got bases in Germany, and World War II ended some time ago. So I'm going to leave England soon, and so Craig Murray says they're not going to, extradite an election year, and Chris Hedges goes au contraire. The CIA is now a paramilitary organisation, used to be an intelligence gathering organisation. They want Assange in a dungeon in the United States. They don't care about the political consequences of Joe Biden. Oh shit. So this could be quick, it could be fast. We don't know, And but we got to keep taking initiatives. And this gathering should have been publicised the other day, when you had 150 people at that gathering, who might even live near here, So you got to spread out, got to affirm, not everyone's going to get on with each other. You just got to support people taking any action, and especially support people before the courts and in jail. And we'll have different musical tastes, even different hairstyles, and we might not even like each other personally. That's fine, because we want a big movement. Thank you.
Thank you, Kieran. Thank you.
I did tell people that we go the Australian embassy. Yeah, but you get.
Do you want to say anything?
No. You get individuals that they're on that